let's get started. We're going to talk a little bit about the passing here of Billy Graham. Okay. Yes. All right. Billy Graham, as it was reported, passed away today at age 99. Okay, as it was reported, he passed away either today or last night, but he was 99. Many of you are familiar with the Billy Graham evangelical services that he used to have, where the man used to rent out baseball and football stadiums and have these massive church services, and they would claim that thousands upon thousands of people would get saved. And, you know, for the most part, and then he would also, those crusades from time to time would air on television, where he would buy local and national airtime, typically on a Saturday evening or a Sunday evening, but it was typically on the weekends. They would, you know, buy this airtime, and then they would broadcast these crusades, not on Christian television, mind you, but on regular television. Quickly, without disparaging the dead, I don't have much to say about Billy Graham personally. I did not follow him to the great extent that a lot of folk did. So a lot of people are given a lot of great words and a lot of great things, but one thing that kind of stands out to me is when given opportunity to be a more active, given the opportunity to take a more active role in the civil rights movement. See, Billy Graham was one of the first of these evangelicals that throughout the South had integrated services. He was one of the first. I guess he realized early on that black folk give offerings too. Okay. I guess he realized that early on, but he was one of the first that would have integrated services in the 50s. Back when there wasn't much integration going on. But as civil rights began to take shape in the late 50s into the 60s, Billy Graham basically took his ball and went home, or just sat it out. And I believe at the time when the civil rights movement was taking shape, had a nationally known, and at this time as well, he was a nationally known preacher, evangelist, doing those crusades, and was doing those crusades, you know, back in the 50s and 60s. It would have been a good deal for Christians right now, especially evangelicals, especially dealing with these evangelicals. It probably would have made a good statement had Billy Graham taken a more direct role in presenting, say, Martin Luther King to the masses. At least that's my thought, my opinion, from what I was reading about the Reverend Billy Graham. There were opportunities where he could speak up, and sometimes he would make statements and comments. Let me see if I could find one of these statements that he made. I don't know why this thing done died on me, but one of the statements that he made, hold on, let's see here, because I had that article and for some reason it went, oh, that's right, I took the article down because I wanted to find a picture. So just give me a quick second while I bring up that article real quick, because he said something very interesting. And this is something that I was reading today in the Guardian newspaper, as it related to, you know, like for instance, in 1963, when Martin Luther King penned his letter from a Birmingham jail, Graham told reporters that King should put the brakes on a little bit. When you're in the fight, there is no time to put brakes on. What were we putting the brakes on for? But I think a lot of folk will remember him as the preacher who had these long crusades on television. But we also have to remember that when given the opportunity, he chose the racial status quo at the time instead of pushing for a more harmonious and a better situation. So now we bring that fast forward about 50 years, and his son, who is now basically taken over as the voice of the Grahams. And we can see, we talked about how earlier on this show, how Franklin basically gave Donald Trump a pass on his fornications and adulteries and, you know, all that other stuff. But we also see that a lot of the positions that Franklin holds and other evangelicals that were with and that were mentored by and that were all a part of this whole Graham situation, you know, was somewhat kind of bigoted as well. And I just wanted to leave that out there, because I already know that on YouTube I'm going to get comments about, you know, how I'm going to speak bad about the dead, how he's not racist, how he's not this. But what my whole point of this is saying, when given an opportunity to be different than the others in the evangelical, in the Southern Baptist Church, who is full of racism, given the opportunity to be different, Billy Graham chose the racist status quo. That's all I'm saying about it. That's all I need to say about it. That's his choice. You know, and I'm not saying anything that whether I'm going to put him in hell or heaven or anything like that. You know, I know a lot of folk put him in heaven. I don't do that. Okay. That's not my place. That's, you know, people say I judge too much. Well, that's part of the judgment that I don't do. That I do not judge, okay? However, you know, he says he's a believer. I believe that he says he's a believer. And I'll just leave it at that.